Welcome to week 3 of the rundown. It's me, Joe, with Brandon. To my left or right, I don't know what it is on the Zoom call, but we will figure that out when I'm editing this. But we got week 3 of the rundown going. Got a lot to talk about. It was a great week for Big Rapids basketball, great week for the CSA as a whole, but it's going to definitely be throwing a wrench in a lot of things because we have no clue what's going to happen for the CSA after this week either when the future considerations come in. But Brandon, we got a great episode.
Absolutely. And this is certainly going to be the week. We're going to find out who really is a contender and who could potentially be a pretender now, obviously. You still got 2 months of basketball, but we're going to start to see where these teams truly, really shape up here over the next couple of weeks. So it's really going to be fun, and it's already almost into 2024 for this season, Joe. It feels like we were just talking about game one only a few weeks ago, and now
It's
we got to
flying
go to a
by.
whole new year, and it's only been a month. Like that doesn't work mathematically, and it really hurts my brain right now, especially now that finals are done.
Yeah, it's flying by. I mean, now the finals are for you, Brandon. You're sitting in the clear, and it's going to be a great time. But definitely, you're going to be excited for the call for Friday with Big Rapids playing Hart. But we'll go swing it back to a week ago. Brandon's going to give us kind of the recap, the rundown of what happened over this past week for Big Rapids basketball. Brandon, take it away. Big games last week.
Yeah, especially over on the CSAA, which we'll get to those scores here in just a minute from Joe. But obviously, Big Rapids came off a really tough loss to Reed City on Friday, 49-30. A really tough game shooting the basketball. They took a lot of really nice looks. When back watching the film, I watched for a good portion of that game again, because obviously, as you call it, you're seeing it differently while you're thinking about what's coming next, as opposed to just watching it sitting back as a fan's perspective. And they had a lot of good looks in that game. Now, they were a little bit maybe too conservative shooting the basketball, and I asked that question to Coach Thomas in last night's games, recording this on Tuesday when they were playing against Fremont, and he said that they took a lot of conservative looks, and that was something that was a commonality found between both of us watching film. So they really had the quick trigger finger. It felt like in that Friday game, they finished 3 of 29 from 3. That's about 10.3%, which is abysmal compared to what this team's ability is shooting the basketball. They shot under 24% from the floor as a whole. There was just a really, as simple as it could be, there was a lid on the basket, and they could not figure out a way to stop that Reed City offense from just making a couple big plays and big moments. They went on a couple stretch runs because they still held Reed City to 49 points. They defensively played very solid. They just could not score the basketball, and especially they threw a lot of different defenses, and that ended up preparing them very well for a Fremont game on Tuesday where they're able to bounce back, come back, and get a win, 54-51, the final score from last night's game. And it was certainly a tough one. Fremont was up double digits in the third quarter, but Big Rapids came out. They forced some turnovers on Chaz Miller, who's a really good ball player there for the Packers, and they were able to get back in the game. A couple huge three-point shots from Cole Heiss got them back in the game, and they were able to seal it down the stretch, being able to be aggressive, get to the basket, especially Gabe Jinga. Ty Gilstrick had some crucial buckets, a couple of them and ones as well with Riley Venix, and that was a really big performance for them, especially defensively, settling in that second half of the second half and being able to run through that quarter and get turnovers, take them into points, and get them back into that game. That was a really great job from that team, being resilient, and that's something that's going to be a test, especially on Friday. I mentioned that we got that district semifinal rematch coming up with the Hart Pirates, so they're going to be looking forward to that game. But Fremont especially, there was a lot of offensive boards for the Packers early on. I believe they almost had 10 before the first half concluded, so you obviously gave them way too many opportunities. Second chance points were certainly a key of success for Fremont in the first half. They eliminated in the second half. They hit some big shots, and the Cardinals were able to force enough turnovers to give Fremont's offense less opportunities to get that lead farther, and they ended up coming back and winning that game in crunch time. So 1-1 overall in the week, and now they're still going to be stuck, unfortunately, with that Reed City loss in conference play in the middle of those CSAA standings. But right now, as we kind of look at some of the scores, Joe, it looks like we got a couple teams that are looking to really run away with the conference already in Grant and Reed City, and those two teams happen to be headed to the same exact place on Friday night, willing to play each other.
Yeah, that one's going to be an interesting game. Definitely going to try to get the scores for you Friday during the broadcast for that for sure. But some score recaps from around the CSA as I look at my phone. I'll go right through them. Strap in because there's a lot to go through. We'll go through the Friday night scores. That was on December 8th. So last Friday's scores. Grant was able to beat Lakeview away in Lakeview, 82-32, quick 50-point dub for the Tigers. Also, Reed City beat BR at home. We know that 49-30. White Cloud was able to beat Tri-County in White Cloud 66-50, and Newaygo was able to beat Central Montcalm at home 88-73. Kent City was on the road at Fruitport Calvary, so quite the hike for them. They lost a close one 62-67, and Chip Hills was able to beat Morley, close one, nail biter 52-51 in Stanwood. So that's going to be a little bit of a tough taste for Morley for this upcoming week. But now going into Tuesday, so last night, by the time we're recording this, we're going to try to get this out for Wednesday as well. Grant beat Shelby at home 79-34. Newaygo beat Muskegon Orchard View 67-58. Kent City lost to Hopkins away 45-59. Hate to see it. Could not pull up with a win. They were able to get, or they ended up getting 2 losses on the week. Big Rapids beat Fremont at home that we know 54-41. Chip Hills lost to Greenville. I believe it's 54-57, but I put 4-57 in my phone, and I know that's not true because there's no way that happened at home. So that's a tough loss at your own court to deal with. Central Montcalm lost to Ithaca away 62-64. That one was a close one to muster up. Lakeview was able to win it in OT against Hesperia 42-38. Tri-County fell to Leroy Pine River 56-65 on the road. And then closing out all the scores in the CSAA, Morley lost to Comstock Park 38-56 in Comstock Park. Tough looks for everybody if they lost, but also great looks for everybody that won. So it was a healthy mix, I feel like, of what we saw from the CSAA. But this week, I feel like it's going to be a telltale sign. We said it last week, too, but I think each week, especially with how much disparity there is with the CSAA, each game is going to count so much near the end, and we're not going to see too much of a difference between first, fourth, fifth, whatever it might be for these final standings. But I'm excited to see what happens this upcoming week, Brando.
Absolutely. There's some big games on deck and huge conference implications here early on in the season as far as standings is concerned. And obviously, you can only look at them so far, as obviously it is still the 3rd week of December. So there's still a lot of time before we really settle at the end of the day with the final standings going to the CSA tournament. So there's a lot to turn around, especially when everybody forgets about that New Year spring. There's always a team. That will
It
flip it
always
around
happens.
after a Christmas break. It always happens, Joe. You know it. I know it as former players in this conference. There will always be a team that figures it out. Something clicks over the holiday break. Not sure if they got a Ted Lasso speech or anything catching up on Apple TV, but it just happens every single year. So there will be a team that will come out of nowhere, and they're going to get themselves back in it. But just based on what we've seen right now, I mean, obviously, you got the 2 top teams, 2-2-0 CSA teams that are going to head-to-head at Grant. That's Reed City and the Tigers. Then you got Central Montcalm and White Cloud. That's going to be a really good game to see, especially at Montcalm, how White Cloud plays on the road. Haven't had as many road games for them this year so far. Then obviously you got Kent City and Newaygo, 2 really tough teams that like to play physical. Then you got Lakeview, Morley Stanwood, Chip Hills, Tri-County looking to be competitive games. And then obviously you got Big Rapids at Hart, which will be a very fun matchup, especially looking forward into March for that district alignment. If these 2 teams meet again, we'll get the first preview from that now at Big Rapids. After last year, Big Rapids fell to Hart at Hart as well at home in that district semifinal round.
That's tough. I was going to say, yeah, it's at Big Rapids, is it not?
It is. It is at Big
They have,
Rapids. So home court this time.
yeah, but then Tuesday they're away, right? They had like a little bit of a homestand, but then they're going to be back at it.
Yep, they will have these next Friday's game as well as Friday's game, but they'll be on the road on Tuesday. They will be on the road, but good news, it's only to White Cloud, so not too far away, only a half hour's drive. So they're really staying homebound over the next couple weeks, which is big for Big Rapids, especially getting really adjusted to that gym. And it's really especially something that they've been looking forward to as playing a couple road games here to start the season. So it'll be very interesting to see how they adjust, especially keeping shooting on those rims, if that's what it means from what we saw Tuesday night. If they're able to shoot the rock that efficiently, let's just keep them in that gym and let's keep shooting the lights out. But especially with the implications of this game, obviously we have the CSAA standings as far, which is very interesting because you look at a lot of teams in courtesy of MPR. Right now, the MPR teams, which it's a whole formula that goes through teams winning percentage based on that's a quarter of your MPR, and that's added to your opponent's winning percentage that you end up playing. That accounts for half of it. So obviously it rewards you for playing good teams. And then there's another quarter for the opponent's opponent winning percentage, right? So it's all about being able to beat quality teams, but not only that, playing quality teams as much as being able to play some of those not necessarily as competitive teams. That NPR really kind of boosts you towards that. And right now you have Reed City, Big Rapids, Newaygo, Grant, White Cloud, Kent City, Tri-County, Chip Hills, Central Montcalm, Moly, Stanwood, Lakeview. That's the order of those teams. So obviously not the same as the standings, right? Reed City was number 2 in the overall MHSAA rankings. They're number 2, or excuse me, they're number 1 in MHS MPR. Big Rapids is number 2 still, despite having 2 losses compared to the Tigers, who are all the way down, I believe, in 4th in MPR. So you look at that in perspective of they're trying to look at where these teams are at, the quality of teams they're playing, and to see how good they really are, right? That's really the implementation of MPRs. They're trying to figure out truly how good a team is based on how much they're winning and what kind of quality opponents that they're playing. So when you look at that in perspective, right, it almost looks like Grant's the underdog, even though they've beaten teams by 30, 40 points overall in the first couple weeks of the season. Granted, they've played some of the bottom teams right now in the CSA in those first couple weeks. So it's going to be really fun to see, because now I think this week, especially as we went over the matchup, they're obviously very close together. They're very similar teams, and especially where they're played at, it feels like the underdog in each scenario, when it's considered of NPR in the standings, is hosting. So that adds even more of an aspect, an element of surprise, and something that we're going to be looking forward to. Because I mean, I think we mentioned it, Joe. Obviously, Tri-County, they played at Greenville. Greenville played out of their minds that night, and were shooting the rock just unbelievable, lights out from downtown. And then they go to Chip Hills, and they struggled in parts of that game. They got it to an early lead. They gave it up at halftime. Then they were able to kind of get back to it at the beginning of the third quarter and coast from there. But it feels like home court advantage now might even be more important than ever, even back when we played.
Yeah, absolutely. It's weird to see how much that can really affect it, especially if you play on a Tuesday or something like that. There's a lot of factors going into it. Hate to say it, but school nights are just a big thing too when you gotta go play a Tuesday night. I mean, luckily Big Rapids going to White Cloud not too far, but when you gotta make the drive, to Chip Hills or even farther down south, something like that, it's not always the easiest, not easiest to do. And Big Rapids especially has a little bit of a test coming up. Like we said, Hart on Friday. They've played Benzie Central, who's going to be coming up in what, a week and a half or 3 games for Big Rapids. So that's going to be a solid little test for them as well. A little bit of a precursor to what they can see. Benzie Central was able to beat Hart as well when they took each other on. I think there was Hart's first game or second game, I believe it was. They lost 41-61 against Benzie Central. So we have a lot to look forward to for this upcoming week. A lot of implications, like I said at the start, that are going to be really kind of push its way through right before the break in the middle of the season before we get into it for the 2024 half of the season. But Brandon, I cannot tell you how excited I am for the CSAA, especially with how many teams are going to be taking each other on, and just how many there are going to be this week that are just going to be showing out and having a good time. I'm really excited.
Yeah, can't be more excited for what we got here coming up on deck, especially being biased with Big Rapids, and it's going to be a lot of a telltale through these next couple of games, right? You obviously have Hart, team they've been looking forward to playing, especially we're hearing from some of those players last year. They're ready for this rematch already, and especially I know some of the guys over at Montcalm Community College that played on that team last year, they're certainly going to probably be trying to pull up to that game as well, with classes being over, to see if this year's crew can take down the Pirates. But then you obviously got White Cloud as well, really good CSA team that can shoot the bell as good as anybody. And then Friday, Thursday, when they go and play against Benzie Central, a team that beat Hart earlier on this season, as you mentioned, Joe. So it's going to be a loaded slate for them. And then they come back from the break, maybe ease in. No. They're not easing back into it. TC West, St. Francis, going right back into it. They're going to go play some ball right at the highest level, right back out of the gate. So Coach Thomas, Coach Ingles, they're ready to go. They mixed up personnel, especially over the last couple of weeks, to keep guys fresh. And you'd even included the starting lineup here on the Tuesday last night. So we're going to see some changes a lot from teams, and especially, we don't want to mention this word, but health is going to be super important over this early part of the season, because obviously guys are still kind of getting into shape a little bit, injuries, getting banged up. Obviously, Corbin Clark, one of the guys who was out for Big Rapids over the last couple of games due to an injury in practice. So that's going to be a major concern for all these teams, right? Because it doesn't matter necessarily how you play in December, it matters how you play in February and March. So it's going to be a very full fell the tail, and it's going to be a really fun season. I can't wait to look forward to it.
Absolutely. I think bringing it's time to get into our half court buzzer beater. Little prediction time. Would it not be the right time to do so?
I feel like it's time, Joe. You hit
All
us
right.
first.
I was gonna say you hit us first because my battery on my laptop is running low and I need to plug it in. So you take over so I can go do that real quick.
All right, certainly will do so. You do that while I entertain the people here. Here's my hashtag Hail Mary in quotation marks, full court buzzer beater for the win, upset alert, whatever you want to call it. Complete and utter chaos mode, right? I think this will be a very interesting outcome to what we can see overall from the season. And this is talking strictly about Friday's games here, right, Joe? We're talking just about Friday's
Just
games.
Friday. Yeah, just
Okay.
Friday. Well, I mean, you can toss in Tuesday if you really wanted to, but mine is for
Okay.
Friday.
Yeah, I'll keep mine with Friday then too. I think we see a very interesting upset in this week's slate of games, and I think it's certainly obviously a Big Rapids. I think comes in as the favorite, so I could pick them. I'm going to pick them anyway, so that's not really fair. The upset that I do see on this, and maybe it's considered an upset, maybe it's not. Based on the CSAA standings, I think it's going to be considered an upset. And that is going to be, I think we are going to see a upset for Kent City. I think they're going to take down Newaygo at home. That team is due for a breakout game offensively. They've only scored, I think, 217 points overall this year through their first 4 games. They're a game behind everybody and even 2 behind the Lions themselves. And I think Newaygo is going to come into this game as the favorite. Obviously, Kent City coming up 2 really tough losses to Fruitport, Calvary Christian, and Hopkins, as you mentioned, Joe, on Tuesday. I think that at home, I think they get back on track against the Newaygo team that they've certainly had success with in the past. I believe into last year's matchup, I believe Kent City won that matchup. So I think they're going to keep it going. I think they're going to get the victory. I'm going to double check here to make sure. No, actually, even better, they lost on the road. I thought at first that it was flip-flop, that they had won by 2. They'd actually lost by 2. So even better for me, I'm getting Kent City. They're going to get a win in the rematch category. They're going to get a revenge win against the Lions. I think they're going to shake up the standings here early on in December.
I love it. I love it, Brandon. That was actually partially going to be mine. I was teetering tottering between who I was going to choose, but I think I'm going to go with a game that everybody's got their eyes on for the CSAA this week. Reed City and Grant. Everybody's going to be looking at it. It's going to be in Grant. We talked about it last week. Grant has, for some reason, one of the tougher gyms to play in. I feel like for I have no reason, I have no clue why, but it always just seems like it was very tough. They got a very passionate fan base. But Reed City's going to walk in there and give the first loss to Grant in the past 4 games for him. I'm going to be with you, Brandon. Solidarity. I'm a Coyote for the week. All right. Because Coyotes are going to go in there. I think it's going to be a pretty high scoring game. I would say so. Grant is a team that's been putting up pretty much above 60 points for the 3 out of the 5 games with, past 82. They had an 82-point performance against Lakeview, 79 points against Shelby, both are one away, one at home. This one's going to be at home. Reed City, though, they've played some solid teams. They've won in Central Montcalm. That's not easy to do. And they beat Big Rapids, a huge rivalry game. They took Tuesday off, I believe. So now they're going to be really just rested up, ready to go. Reed City's going to win this one 67-64 is what's going to happen. And they're going
Oh,
to be able to
okay.
take sole possession of the top of the CSAA, and they're going to or then they're going to stop Grant's 4-game heater that they're on right now.
All right, all right. I'll pick my score here. I completely forgot to throw one out here. I'm just going to articulate it in my head based off what I have on the stat sheet. I think defense will be a priority, but I think we'll see offense early on in this game. I think we see a 57-52 game in favor of the Eagles. I think this one won't eclipse 70, which is where Newaygo wants to play. So I think with that, Kent City will hold them defensively, one of the better teams in the conference defensively overall, statistically through the first 4 games. So I think Kent City will hold them. But I think more importantly, Joe, we're going to have to find alternative ways to travel because if we get on M37, I think our cars are going to get their tires slashed based on our picks here so far.
Yeah, wild stuff. I'm also looking at our stat sheet, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but do we have the same exact, if you look at conference points scored for all the teams, the total in of points against and points scored is the exact same across the whole conference. Is that correct?
Conference points scored and points allowed being the same?
Yeah, is that correct at 1,084?
Yes, and it should be correct because therefore each teams are playing each other. So scored one way is allowed the other way and vice
Hey,
versa. So it
so
should be
anyways,
zeros.
okay, I've definitely for sure read that wrong. So forget I said anything. I thought that was going to be some statistical anomaly, but it makes sense. It makes a lot more sense now that Brandon held my hand and walked me through that one.
Yes,
However,
that's the tie. That's just to make sure everything is working. Yeah, there's a 0 there. That means we're in good shape. The stats are up to
yeah,
date, and that there's no
we're gonna be
lopsided
able to pick it up.
inaccuracies.
We're gonna be able to pick it up for sure. But let us know what if you got some Hail Mary or not Hail Marys anymore, excuse me, half court buzzer beater predictions. Let us know. Reach out, Big Country WBRN, however you want to let us know. Please let us know because we'd love to see what the viewers are thinking, what's gonna happen this upcoming week. But Brandon, you're on the call for this upcoming week against Hart Big Rapids. What time's pregame? What time's game start? What are you looking forward to this game to leave our viewers off with something?
Yes, sir. Cardinal Crazies. Tune in 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, not Central, Mountain, or Pacific. Yeah, don't be too crazy here. 6:40 Eastern Standard Time, Big Rapids Public Schools pregame show leading up to the 7 o'clock tip. We'll have myself, Joe Nagy, will get us the scores from around the league as well, as we'll have full coverage for you. Pirates and Cardinals, a rematch we've been looking forward to all year long. It's going to be a good one. Can't wait to bring it to you.
Absolutely. That's going to be it for the rundown. Week 3. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, to bring you everything that happened this upcoming week and preview the week coming up as well. So that's going to be it for the rundown. Brandon, I thought
We'll
you were going
see
to
you.
say something. See you, everybody.
I guess.